Oh, that's just crazy, man. Oh my god. That is so fucking crazy. Oh, that's actually so fucking crazy. My mind is like getting blown, bro. Like it's like getting blown more than my wife, face.
And the same goes for the Trailblaze power icon and Phainon's bracelet.
What the fuck? Are we gonna watch? Oh, bro, that's so many things to catch up on.
Okay, if you
We just spent the whole day catching up on lore. Oh my god, after doing my job as a guide maker, now I have to come back and take lore lessons? Why the hell do I need to get educated by lore, bruh? Oh my god, oh my god, okay, let's just watch the latest one, because this shit is 49 minutes long. Do we actually watch this whole thing?
Welcome back, Trailblazers. This is episode 4 of our Honkai Star Rail Amphoreus story. Focuses on the stories of Hyacinth and Cypher. But we are also at the end of our journey, so things are really starting to heat up. Not only have we managed to collect all 12 core flames, but thanks to Herta and Screwlum, we also got a pretty good look at what Amphoreus looks like under the hood. Unfortunately, most of the stuff they're referencing is only outlined in 2 simulated universe expansions, which are both very, very long and released quite a while ago. So I decided to put together a complete chronological recap of those expansions, both Golden Gears as well as Unknowable Domain, which you can find in a separate video link below, alongside all of my theory thoughts for this version update. That video, it's just there for your convenience if you want it. But context is very important, so I will be providing a bare bones summaries of those simulated universe expansions in this video, so you don't really have to go looking for extra stuff elsewhere if you don't want to. But we've still got a lot to get through, so let's kick off this recap with a quick reminder of what happened in the last episode. Anaxa had been working on his theory of the soul prior to the fall of the Grove of Epiphany. This theory of his essentially boils down to the idea that everything in Amphoreus is made of memories, or rather, memoria, although he doesn't really know that it's called memoria. He also theorized that because the world was made of memories, that Kefali must be rebuilding the world base to prove his hypothesis as quickly as possible, because he only had about 15 days to live thanks to the heavily fractured state of his soul. He needed direct access to Kefali and his memories. Access to Kefali, however, required the permission of the Council of Elders, so to get their approval, Anaxa promised to side with them during the next Citizens' Assembly, where he would vote against continuing the Flame Chase journey. Using the art of alchemy, which is really just what we call memoria manipulation on this planet, Anaxa accessed Kefali's memories and discovered that his theories were correct, and that Amphoreus was stuck in a cycle where Chrysos heirs who complete the Flame Chase journey become the Titans of the reborn world. He also discovered that Castorus was an heir from the previous cycle, reborn in the current cycle due to the actions of her twin Polixia, who was last seen in Styxia. So Castorus and the Trailblazer head there not just to recover Death's core flame, but also to recover the Trailblazer's soul, because earlier when the Trailblazer and Mem took on Orynyx's trial, they learned that the Trailblazer had been dead since they arrived on Amphoreus, which meant that they lacked a future. And passing Orynyx's trial and living required recovering that lost future, which should be in Death's hands, hence the trip to Styxia. But Polixia had sacrificed her life to revive Castorus at the start of the cycle, so Castorus had to revive her using alchemy before embracing her and becoming the next demigod of death. She also revived the Trailblazer in the process, which was a nice bonus. Meanwhile, at the Citizens' Assembly, Anaxa betrayed the Council of Elders and voted to continue the Flame Chase journey. Satisfied that his theories had been proven correct cycle, Anaxa passed the trial of Circes and returned the core flame of reason to the Vortex of Genesis. The Trailblazer also returned the core flame of death to the Vortex on behalf of Castorus. Outside of Amphoreus, Black Swan confirmed Anaxa's theories about Amphoreus from an outside perspective, claiming that some of the Garden of Recollection were trying to unlock the secrets of Amphoreus for their own purposes, and that March's comatose state could be a consequence of that. And back inside Amphoreus, Herta managed to project herself into the outskirts of Amphoreus, the Vortex of Genesis, where she encountered traces of the Trailblazer Dan Heng and the Flame Reaver before she was stopped by Lygus, who she identified as an Intellitron, much like Screwlum. Lygus reveals that Amphoreus was something like a prison containing a Lord Ravager, and Herta was forced to make a temporary retreat. And that's where our previous journey ended, but I don't really want to leave Herta just yet, so let's start this patch's recap off with her reappearance at the end of the quest, because Herta was most certainly not deterred by Lygus's meddling. Her temporary retreat only lasted as long as it took her to request help from Screwlum. After all, who better to counter the actions of an Intellitron like Lygus than the Emperor of Intellitrons himself? Screwlum manages to bypass the firewall Lygus set up to keep outsiders like Herta out of the core of Amphoreus by using a chronocognitive anchor he developed during a previous previous encounter with a
Whoa.
similar planet to Amphoreus. But this only allowed the geniuses to project their data spirit entities inside of Amphoreus, which means that they can only observe Amphoreus and can't actually interact with it directly. And in the process of doing this, they appear to have killed Lygus, or at least destroyed the body that he was in. Herta at least believes that he's still alive and located somewhere else, and I agree with her. Herta also confirms that it's very likely March 7th is also trapped inside of Amphoreus, so they're gonna need to locate her as well as the Trailblazer and Dan Heng while they're in here. Now, while there are many problems left to solve, they have at least managed to uncover the truth behind the world of Amphoreus. That it's not actually a planet at all, but a Memoria-based simulation created and powered by Emperor Rupert II's scepter. Now, if you don't know who Rupert is or what a scepter is, this is where I'm going to remind you that I have put together a full breakdown of all of the lore involving both of these things in this video, alongside all of my theories about how it all plays into
Nah, we're good, guys.
the purpose of Amphoreus. It is a bit of a long video because there's a lot to go through, but if all you want to do is understand the basics of what we're dealing with, here's what you need to know for now. Emperor Rupert I was a robot who launched a war against organic life forms because he thought that they were error-ridden and flawed. This war was called the First Machine War and started off as a show of brute force, but over time, Rupert I developed the anti-organic equation, which became the foundation for an antivirus software intended to assist inorganic life forms in the destruction of organic life forms. This miraculous achievement earned him the gaze of Noose and an invitation to become Genius Society member number 27. Over time, the anti-organic equation antivirus sort of turned into a mind virus that could infect both organic and inorganic life, driving them all to madness. This is very likely related to the Black Tide, although it is not yet confirmed. The First Machine War continued to ravage the galaxy until Genius Society member number 4, Polka Kakamond, assassinated Rupert I. But while that did end the First War, it wasn't the end of the Ruperts. As an organic life form, somehow managed to inherit the legacy and perhaps consciousness of Rupert I after solving the anti-organic equation. And then they became Rupert II. Rupert II launched the Second Machine War, but instead of focusing on means of physical annihilation, he created a network of powerful devices known as Scepters, which essentially functioned as a great cosmic brain extension that Rupert II controlled. The technology was meant to mimic the brain of Noose, with each scepter functioning as an individual neuron, each one running on the anti-organic equation and capable of great feats like creating a planet out of nothing but particles, annihilating entire galaxies, and turning the universe into a giant hive mind. My favorite. Polka Kakamond eventually assassinated Rupert II as well, which put an end to the Second Machine War. The IPC then collected and seized the entire scepter system and transferred it over to the Intelligentsia Guild for study, which led to yet another disaster called the Scholars' Strife, which eventually ended with a good chunk of the remaining scepters destroyed and a lot of dead or mad scholars. But a few of these scepters evaded capture, and among them were scepters that specialized in running doomsday simulations based on various civilizations found throughout the galaxies. And Amphoreus just so happens to be one of those doomsday simulation scepters. Although it does appear to be a little bit unique in the fact that it leverages Memoria instead of just being a digital simulation on its own. So we finally have our answer for why so much of Amphoreus is digitized and why it's stuck in a cycle. The simulation resets the loop with new variables as it explores different doomsday scenarios. Now, after finishing this version's quest, you should have received a text.
Wait, I'm like digesting. Wait. So the entire planet is like a test. And every single time the brand new Chrysos hairs, the flame chasers, they win, the test resets. And then those that pass the tests becomes the next fresh batch of the Titans. And then it will rerun the whole thing again just to simulate like what exactly will be the potential possibilities of all these different doomsday scenarios. Oh my god. Oh my god. Close enough. Thank you.
Message from the Astral Express, which unlocks some optional post-quest dialogue. If you warp over to the seclusion zone in Herta Space Station, you're gonna find several memory bubbles which expand on the information I just presented. In these bubbles, you'll find information like Scrulum noting that he's found one of these scepters before, and he became worried that the anti-organic equation within it could escape the scepter simulation and spread throughout the universe again, which would be very, very bad just as bad as it was the first 2 times.
Uh-oh.
So he had to disable that scepter, and he might want to do the same to Amphoreus if another solution isn't found. But okay, now that we understand...
So he wants to shut down the entire experiment. So Screwlum doesn't believe that it's gonna lead to the good ending. So he's like, fuck it, why not just like end this whole thing right here, right now? So this thing will cease to exist. So he's just gonna press the turn off this button. But like other people is like, no, there are still like ways that we can win this. Oh, better save this. Ooh, yikes.
Amphoreus is a simulated...
It's literally like the exact same thing an AI would do. It's like what Grok to the AI would do. Yeah, we're not gonna risk it. Just kill the damn thing.
World powered by a mechanical planet-sized neuron made by Emperor Rupert II, let's rewind a bit and check in with Dan Heng and Lygus in the Abyss. The goal of their trip is to investigate the somehow still burning Astral Express train car. Seriously, how is this thing still on fire? The whole arc with Anaxa in the Citizens Assembly took like 15 days, so we've been here for at least a few weeks. It kind of feels like the simulation is glitching out a little bit, and somehow no one has noticed. But anyway, Lygus claims that he can repair the train car and send Dan Heng and the Trailblazer back to the stars. When questioned about how he manages to repair something he's never seen before, Lygus claims his people, the Antikytherians, received this blessing as a gift from Kethely, which we already know is kinda BS because Lygus is an Intellitron. So it's pretty likely that Antikytherian is just another name for Intellitron. After all, the Antikytherians are named after the Antikytherian device, a computer-like machine used to calculate the position of the stars that was found among ancient Grecian ruins. Plus, we also know he's kind of like the overseer of the whole world at this point, so it's not really that shocking for him to claim that he can bypass Aquila's defenses in order to yeet the Nameless out of Amphoreus. And it is possible that he followed Rupert II, but somehow became isolated on this scepter after the Second Machine War ended, or perhaps he believes he has nowhere else to go. Like perhaps he thinks the planet has been destroyed, despite the fact that Screwlum now rules over the former Rupert Empire of Machines. Or he could be Rupert III, who allegedly doesn't exist yet, but it is possible that it could be Lygus. So that's fun. But Lygus and Dan Heng are interrupted by the arrival of a group of assassins known as the Cleaners. Great name. These guys make it their mission to thwart the Flame Chase journey by any means necessary and have been around for centuries. Kynus of the Council of Elders was a former Cleaner. In fact, she was the 27th in her line, which is kind of suspicious now that I think about it, because Emperor Rupert was number 27 of the Genius Society. And apparently, Cleaners use alchemy to inherit the memories, hatred, and identities of their predecessors, which is kind of what happens with the Ruperts. They sort of seem to jump bodies. I'm not really going anywhere with that. I just think it might be important to keep in mind. The Cleaners don't really get to do anything here, as Kratos and his Kremnoan soldiers swoop in with the declaration that Aglaya is dead. And we're gonna come back to this, but let's switch gears and check in with the Trailblazer and Cypher, because it's apparently treasure hunting in Styxia Day. Yippee! And after disguising herself as a Flame Reaver to pull a quick prank on the Trailblazer, Cypher explains that the power of the Trickery Titan is the power of lies. The more people believe in a lie, the more real it becomes. If everyone believes in a lie, then that lie becomes reality.
Yo, check quick. Believe that you will win the 50-50. Believe that 50-50 does not exist. If everybody in the world believes in it, then it will become a reality. Absolutely. All right, that's how this shit works.
Really get the chance to do much treasure hunting though, because phainon summons us for training at the Grove instead,
Just
where
believe
Mem busies herself with a scroll on divination. She's developed an interest in it, believing it to be a means by which she could lift the veil of fate that drapes over the uncertain future, or at least give people hope to face tomorrow with confidence. Phainon can't help but comment on how similar Mem's thoughts and interests are to Cyrene.
I believe that you believe that I believe. Absolutely.
But their meeting is also interrupted by the Cleaners. But just as it was the case with Dan Heng and Lygus, the Cleaners are not here to kill them, they are merely a distraction. Bait to keep Phainon occupied while another group takes out their real target, which is Aglaya. Now, Aglaya could technically defeat the assassins in combat, but as Anaxa revealed before he departed, Aglaya's soul is terribly fractured and fragile. She doesn't have much time left as it is, so she bares her neck and relinquishes her life willingly, but not before entrusting several of her nymphs with her dying wishes. The effects of her death are felt around the world. For starters, the world-wound web goes down without her presence, effectively silencing all but critical long-distance communications. In Styxia, Cypher had had recruited Bartolos to go treasure hunting with her in the Trailblazer's place, but they had to cut it short when they received Aglaya's final message, a heartfelt farewell from Aglaya to her dearest friend, and a plea for Cypher to return to Akama, lest the Flame Jace journey fail. Cartonis also receives a message from Aglaya as he's midway through forging a new sword for Phainon. She asks him to carry out a request that she made while she was still alive, to bind what's left of her soul's divinity to a simple bracelet that was given to her by a blind child.
And
despite its
fucking meme dropped it, by the way. Meme dropped this fucking, like, bro. Bitch flight the entire time of her goddamn existence. All she had to do was just fucking fly a little bit faster for that 1/10 of a second, and we could have goddamn clutched that thing. But no, she's had to be a little bit slow and the fucking blazer drop. Oh my god, bro.
left of her soul's divinity to a simple bracelet that was given to her by a blind child. Despite its plain appearance, Aglaya considers the bracelet to be a perfect embodiment of beauty, because it's a heartfelt gift from a pure-hearted child. Beauty isn't all about being pretty, after all. This bracelet was to be given to Phainon upon his return to Akama, as he is the one who Aglaya wishes to entrust with the leadership of the Chrysos heirs. Of course, she tells him as much in a letter, but the reality of her death still hits him really hard. Cartonis then arrives to give Phainon the new blade he commissioned, the Dawn Maker, a blade forged in the image of the Flame Reaver's sword, which is a weird choice, Phainon, but okay. Cartonis also entrusts him with Aglaya's bracelet, and it's a good thing he does because it comes in real handy later. And amidst Phainon's rise to leadership, Cypher does in fact return to Akama and meets with him. He asks her to use the power of trickery to protect Kefali's core flame while he's away fighting Aquila and trying to seize its core flame. She agrees, after a little playful resistance, but little does he know that Cypher has been protecting both Kefali's core flame and Akama for hundreds of years. We'll come back to Cypher and her shenanigans, but our current priority is retrieving Aquila's core flame, which means that we're gonna need to head into the sky. But the only person who can get us there safely without getting shot down is Hyacinth, a descendant of the Sky People. She is quite literally the only person who can retrieve the blessings of her ancestors, place them in the Chroma Coffer, and forge a rainbow bridge into the sky because she is the descendant of the Sky People's hero, Celiosi. More on her in a bit. Hyacinth's blessing collection requires a trip to the Vortex of Genesis, and fortunately, Dan Heng has figured out how to manipulate Fabusa's spirit waters to warp a single person to and from the Vortex.
Version 4 is gonna be crazy, bro. Bro, I think version 4 would be like, it will be HSR's Fontaine. It will be so fucking crazy. I cannot wait for version 4. Like, by the time this whole... Okay, I'm guessing what's gonna happen, right, is that when Amphoreus arc ends, and then we go back into Panicani, it starts to be a point of time where we start getting introduced to, like, encounters more directly with the Lord Ravagers from, like, the remaining version 3. And then going into version 4, that is gonna be, like, the all-out, like, full-scale combat with the Lord Ravagers. Oh my god, version 4 is gonna be so fucking crazy. I cannot wait, bro. I cannot wait. Hades is actually so fucking insane as a game. Absolutely.
From anywhere, anytime. So he just yeets her over there and she chats with Cypher and Tribby and another ancestor who reveals Hyacinth's prophecy. At the end of the Rainbow Bridge, the Skyfolk will mend dusk and dawn. The next ancestor is Hyacinth's grandmother, who tells her the legend of Celiosi, the Day Thunder Knight, the hero of the Skyfolk and apparently, allegedly, Hyacinth's ancestor. The legend says that during the Chrysos War, when the Titans ravaged the Earth, Aquila looked upon the Skyfolk with disdain. So Celiosi took up arms, and with her beastly companions, Solibus and Lunibus, she trespassed upon Aquila's realm of twilight, intending to seize the core flame and quell Aquila's endless onslaught of thunderbolts and cyclones. She somehow slayed Aquila, but the sky itself began to crumble alongside its titan, threatening the safety of the people of Amphoreus. So Celiosi merged with the titan in order to hold up the sky, declaring that one day, a descendant of hers would ascend to the sky and seize the core flame from her.
And then she became evil. And then she realized how absolutely fucking hopeless humanity was. You know, they are beyond redemption. You might as well just fucking kill them all in game.
Legends aren't always what they appear
She had her ghetto moment.
Hyacinth forges the Rainbow Bridge and travels to the realm of twilight in the sky, accompanied by Phainon, Dan Heng, and the Trailblazer. Compared to the rest of Amphoreus, Hyacinth's ancestors had mastery over an extremely advanced amount of technology, and that, coupled with their inaccessible location, made them a military force even Castrum Kremnos couldn't conquer. Although it did make them quite isolated from everybody else, which led to a lot of infighting amongst the tribes,
lost
especially the
it.
tribes of the Sun Folk and the Rain Folk. In fact, the conflict between these two tribes was apparently one of the big reasons why the legendary Seleuci decided to challenge Aquila in the first place. Apparently, the Sun Folk tribe believed that Aquila favored them because they
Oh my god,
refused to allow
all
the
this started out from racism. I literally just noticed, this entire conflict thing, it just started out from people being racist with one another. Being racist is literally what made her have the motivation. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna go challenge Archelos, right? Archeolose. I'm gonna overcome that shit. And I turn back around after winning. Oh wait, people are still racist.
Of the sun to be covered by clouds and, it wasn't raining. So the Sun Folk persecuted the Rain Folk as an act of, I guess, reverence towards their Titan. However you
Racism.
want to put it, they really just thought
It
they were doing what
really
the Titan
is about
wanted.
racism.
More on this in a
Let's just be
bit.
so for real.
Venturing further inside the fortress, Hyacinth explains that within
AOD,
this twilight
a
realm
little
of her
bit.
ancestors lies the
Yeah,
celestial
like
mural,
Marlians
which
and Eldians. Yeah, a little
theoretically
bit.
served as a
Okay,
reflection
I
of
don't
the
think
true
to that
sky.
extent. It's not
Whatever
that
weather
extent.
pattern appeared on the mural would therefore be reflected in the true sky. So she activates one of the celestial spheres and lights up the mural and reveals the eye of Aquila shining like a sun and watching them from behind the screen. But if they want to coax Aquila out of the mural, they're gonna need to activate more celestial spheres so they can change the bright sky into a cloudy one. After all, rumor has it that Aquila dislikes the clouds, hence why they were said to favor the Sun Folk. And as the party progresses even further into the fortress, they encounter the crystallized
the
memories of
Rainbow
Seleucus'
Bridge.
companions, Solubus and Lunabus.
Yangguan
With the help of
Saihon
Mem's memory
Xiaobama.
reconstruction powers, they reveal the truth behind Seleucus' legend, because yes, the legend is kind of embellished, and the truth is a bit darker than you would want it to be. Seleucus was a child born of both feuding tribes.
Yep.
Her mother was from the Rain Folk, and her father was from the Sun
Oh my
Folk.
god, bro, that's how you cure racism, alright? Be born from both Rain Folk and Sun Folk. So you literally can't be a racist, because you're literally both.
She was always ostracized by both tribes, but she was
Oh.
cast out entirely.
Wait, it's the direct opposite. Wait, because she's born from both, it's not that she got zero racism, she got double the racism. Oh my god, that's so fucking crazy, bro.
Entirely once they discovered
not
that she
funny though, it's
possessed
not
the
funny.
golden blood of the
Yeah,
Chrysos
it's not
heirs.
funny,
But
yeah.
despite her poor treatment, Seleucus blamed the gods, especially Aquila, for the suffering and strife between the tribes of the Skyfolk, and she wanted to slay the Titan to put an end to it all. Because if Aquila wasn't around to favor one tribe over the other, then obviously they would stop feuding, right? Well, after
That's a glitch,
Aquila
yeah,
was
get that.
conquered and submitted
Oh,
to
yeah, how many times
Seleucus'
have I
will,
got?
the
Thanks, Mark.
Skyfolk flew into a panic and fell into bouts of absolute madness, inflicting unspeakable horrors upon each other. At the request of the cleaners, they even hunted down those among them with golden blood for fear that they would slay another god like Seleucus had. Witnessing her people commit atrocities even without Aquila influencing them absolutely infuriated and devastated
Crash out.
Seleucus. And since she had
Yo,
communed with the
crash
Titan
out.
at this point,
Oh,
she
you
understood that
identified.
Aquila hadn't actually ever favored the Sun Folk over the Rain Folk. It was never their will to see the Rain Folk persecuted or the Sun Folk favored. Aquila was merely afraid of the black tide that hid within the shadows that the dark clouds created. So they lit the sky as brightly as possible to keep watch as it encroached on their territory. And that meant that the Titan was not the source of her people's suffering. The Sky Folk were the source of their own suffering. After learning the truth and witnessing the horrors the Sky Folk tribes committed, she became convinced that humanity was the true
Yep.
source of evil. They
Yep.
were an incurable sickness.
Yep.
So she and her two
Absolutely.
faithful companions sought out the secrets of soul alchemy, which allowed her to fuse with Aquila. And then she executed all Skyfolk, save for a few.
Damn.
One of those she spared was a nameless Skyfolk with golden blood who begged for the chance to prove to Seleucus that humanity was capable
It's not
of
even executed, by the way. She killed them by setting them into boiling lava. That's so fucking crazy, bro. Of all ways you can kill them, you kill them by giving them lava. You set the entire place with lava. What the fuck is wrong with her? Couldn't you just gun them down or something like
redemption, that they were something more than the mistakes they made. And she promised that if Seleucus let her live, one of her descendants would return to the sky and prove it. And in the meantime, her family would sing the praises
I'ma
of the
literally
legendary
let her
Seleucus.
cook.
So
And then she
Seleucus
cooked the
agreed to
entire-
her terms and allowed the nameless heir to live, awaiting the day one of her descendants would return to the sky and prove that humanity was worth saving. And that descendant is Hyacinth.
Yeah,
She's not
yeah.
descended of Seleucia at all. She's descended from a nameless sun folk.
Yippee.
Solobus and Lunibus recognize the multifaceted nature of humanity and agree that Hyacinth is worthy of carrying that legacy as a healer rather than as a warrior. But the Seleucia-Aquila hybrid isn't convinced. So with the help of Solobus and Lunibus, phainon rips the Seleucia-Aquila hybrid out of the mural, and let's just say they're not very happy about it. After one round, she destroys the supports of the platform that they're standing on, sending them all hurtling towards the pool of molten golden lava at the bottom of the fortress, which is in the sky. I don't understand how the lava is staying aloft in the sky, but I'm going to ignore that for right now. Phainon destroys one of their eyes during their descent, but drops the bracelet containing Aglaya's remaining divinity. Fortunately, that turned out to be a boon, as a remnant of her consciousness recognizes the danger her companions are in, and suddenly a dozen golden threads lash themselves to the platform and hold it in the air just before it hits the lava. Seleucia was not so lucky. The divine body of Aquila they resided in fell into the pool, and Aglaya's bracelet.
Oh my god, look at how close that was, bro. Bro, like literally everyone saw, bro, I'm just so fucking pissed off at this shit. It's like, bro, everyone saw that this thing was gonna drop. Mimi definitely saw it, right? So like, if phainon was this close to getting the goddamn bracelet, all Mimi had to do was just speed her slow ass bitch ass up and just get the goddamn bracelet, man. It's so fucking close. It's inconceivable that Mimi wouldn't have the fucking speed to just get this goddamn bracelet. It's like the last remaining remnants of like what Aglaya had to offer the rest of, bro. And then she fucking just decided to just select off. Oh my fucking god, bro. That's just crazy.
Bracelet followed shortly after.
No. Okay, what the fuck was that? Wait. What the fuck was
they
that?
resided in fell into the pool, and Aglaya's bracelet followed.
Bro. No sense of urgency, by the way. Zero sense of bro is just chilling. Bro is just like, oh yeah, it's all good. Yeah. Oh, what was that? What? Oh yeah, nah, it's all good. Bro, like no, look at her face. Her face is like the literal neutral NPC face, bro. Like she just didn't give a damn. Oh my god, I'm just so upset.
Followed shortly after, but that's okay.
Yeah, then after the thing dropped, then she starts flying down. Like, oh my fucking god.
It was always prophesized to die in a pool of gold. It's good that she at least got the chance to help her friends one last time before she disappeared for good. Hyacinth takes custody of the core flame of the sky, and the party tries to find their way out of the fortress, which is a bit tricky since it is starting to fall apart without a titan to hold it all together. And you know, maybe I spoke a little too soon with regards to Aquila, as it rises from the ashes like a phoenix, puppeted by the black tide. The untethered power of this giant titan bird shakes the foundation of the fortress, but Solobus and Lunibus catch everyone before they fall, and Hyacinth, phainon, and the Trailblazer are able to strike the final decisive blow. For real this time.
Bro, no blame bro here is criminal. Oh, that was like the perfect opportunity to just select on there like 10 seconds of cinema fight. Oh my god.
We're not out of the woods just yet. You remember how phainon entrusted Cypher with the protection of Kefali's core flame and Akima's safety while he was away? And how I said she's already been doing that for a long time already? Well, it turns out that during one of her attempts to steal a fragment of the Dawn device for funsies over 1,000 years ago, Cypher had infiltrated the priests of Kefali, disguising herself for months as an acolyte. One night as she was working on her heist, Chaplain Amphoreus mistakes her for his most trusted apprentice. And as he lays slowly dying of old age, he reveals a secret that he's been keeping. He's been concealing a vital piece of information from the people of Akima, words left behind by Kefali before they turned to stone. And that secret is that the Dawn device is only going to protect Akima for the next 300 years.
Single-handedly saved the entire world. 700 years, by the way. 700 years. Bro, Farina could never. What? Farina was at 500. Sit the fuck back down, little bro. This is 700 whole ass years.
As the chaplain lay dying, he asks Cypher, who he still thinks is Atticus, to tell the people of Akima the harsh truth about the deadline that Kefali set for them. And Cypher decides to put her powers of trickery to good use. Instead of telling people the truth, she dons the appearance of Atticus and proclaims that the Dawn device will protect the people of Akima forever. And remember, the power of the trickery titan can turn lies into to reality, but only as long as people continue to believe in them. So this simple lie of ciphers managed to buy Akuma an additional 700 years of protection. But to keep that lie alive, she had to separate herself from everybody else, especially Aglaya, who could have learned the truth in an instant if she read Cypher's heart with her threads. And now her job is done.
Bro, it's so sad. Bro, I literally, like, before she went on the fucking mission, Aglaya was like, you know, some lies will always, like, become the truth, so it's pointless. Like, Aglaya literally said that to Cypher, not knowing that for the past 700 years, the only reason why the entirety of Amphoreus was still in there was because of her, like, and oh my fucking god, bro. Oh my fucking, and I think Aglaya just died without ever knowing the truth. Like, what Cypher did. Oh my god, bro. Oh my god, bro, this story, bro. Oh my god, this story.
What's up? After a long game of cat and mouse, starting around Styxia, Cypher is finally cornered by the Flame Reaver, who kills her unceremoniously.
Kill this mother bitch!
Cypher to power the lie, the spell
Kill
breaks,
this mother bitch!
The sky turns red, and it's not long before reality itself
God.
starts wearing thin around the edges. And in the sky, the core flame within Hyacinth recognizes the change in the Dawn device immediately, which makes sense. The Dawn device was a gift to Kefali from Aquila, after all. Desperate to protect the people in Akuma, Hyacinth begs Dan Heng to warp her to the vortex so that she can return the core flame as quickly as possible. After that, she intends to remain in the sky to mitigate whatever damage she can. That would allow her to fulfill her prophecy of mending dusk and dawn. But it might be a bit late for damage mitigation, as the black tide has swept over the entire city. So there's no time to dwell on anything. We have to obtain Kefali's core flame, and quickly. But the question is, where is it? Where did Cypher put it? Because it's certainly not in the cube that the Council of Elders thought they had it in, which also means that Kindness ended up dying while praying to an empty box. So I guess that's pretty fitting. Phainon reasons that Cypher would have put the core flame in the safest place possible, which means that they should simply trust her and get to the Vortex of Genesis as quickly as possible. The fastest way would be for Dan Heng to just warp Phainon there with Fagusa's spirit water. The only problem is, when the sky went dark, all of Fagusa's spirit water started to dry up, so we can't use that trick anymore. And to add insult to injury, the Flame Reaver picks a perfect time to show up, saying stuff like the world must be reset, which is kind of interesting when you think about it, because it implies that he doesn't want it to be reborn.
Right, I just want to say at this point, bro, I'm following like to a T, by the way. Like, everything for the last 20 minutes, I've been following to a T because I know exactly what happened with True Maturity. Like, it is genuinely still 9.7 out of 10. It is such a insanely good story, bro. It's such an insanely good story. I understand everything that's going on, like the whole, like every single Pokemon, even. Bro,
Dead wants things to rewind. Curious? But they can't waste time fighting this guy. We have other things to do. We gotta go find the core flame. And fortunately, Mighty and Castorus show up just in time to challenge the Reaver head-on, giving Phainon, Dan Heng, and the Trailblazer an opening to escape through Triby's Sentry Gate. But they still don't stand a chance against the Reaver. In fact, they fall to his blade rather quickly, which means it doesn't take long for the Reaver to catch up to the Trailblazer, Dan Heng, and Phainon. And since they're in the bathhouse, Dan Heng decides to stay behind to challenge him. And he means business. We haven't seen him do a full shift into his Vidyadhara form in a while. Dan Heng has an advantage here because he has very good control over water, and this is a bathhouse that happens to be full of water. So he's very confident that he can at least buy us some time. He just has to not die. They make it back to the Trailblazer's room in the bathhouse, still looking for any traces of remaining spirit water of Fagusa so that they can get to the vortex. But instead of spirit water, they find Trinon, who explains that Bartolos is actually Zagreus, who was kept alive by another one of Cypher's lies, as well as the energy that's lingering within Kefali's core flame, which is in his stomach. With a few choice words shared, he vanishes and leaves the core flame behind. Phainon enters the vortex alone, his name obscured since, well, Phainon was always a fake name to begin with, and now there's no one left who recognizes that name. Except for Lygus, who's standing around talking about how he's witnessed countless heroes reaching this point, but how none of them have ever managed to move beyond it. He claims that this is expected as it is within their calculations, and by their I do mean their, like the Eon version of their, which means he's likely referencing Noose, since Lygus has caught their glance before, and also because Noose calculates things absolutely, so this kind of, fits. And he claims to be the ultimate observer and encourages phainon to just pay him no mind and complete the flame chase. He's just here to watch. But he does repeat a line from the prophecy. He says, "All shall bid farewell to one, and that person alone will witness the miracle. Such is the will of fate."
Oh my
and
god,
after that,
wait, he's Iron Man. Wait, bro is like Iron Man. At the end of like Avengers Endgame, he is like the one. He is the one that Doctor Strange. Like Doctor Strange is trivial. Bro, I swear to God, someone could like literally make like an Endgame edit of like everything that's been happening in Amphoreus. Trivial was the Doctor Strange, man. And then bro is the final solution. He was the final solution, the one and the only way that this could
phainon turns to Cyrene as she approaches and asks if she is that person, the true witness to the story. And she responds with a simple, "Of course." Well, it's actually hard to say if that's exactly what they mean, because it is possible that she's responding to Lygus's question of whether or not this epic of endless cycles will finally turn a new page.
The one.
Of course, is a pretty good answer to that question as well. And that, my friends, is where we end things this time around, on the worst cliffhanger ever.
But there's more.
It's okay. It's fine. The next
But there's
installment
more
is just
because
around
the
corner,
next
and
video
we
is
can
49
wait. I am
minutes
very,
long, and
very
this is gonna be
patient. I am
absolute
nothing if
cinema.
not patient.
And this is
So
gonna be
for
absolute
now-
cinema. Absolutely, absolutely, absolute cinema. Absolute cinema. All right, we're gonna watch the whole thing. Right, we're gonna watch the whole thing. 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 All right, we're gonna watch. Okay, guys. After this, we'll do the account review. After this, we'll do the account review.
Well.
Okay, after this, we'll do the account review. All right. Okay. Also, this is absolute cinema. This is absolute cinema. This is absolute cinema. Bro, Honkai is absolute. The absolute. It's the cinema of the absolute of the cinema. Absolutely, these two, right? Why did she make Herda angry? Angry Herda. Okay, let's continue on here. Yo, mods. Yeah, how many get a timestamp? Okay, just make everything into one. The entirety of Amphoreus story explained. Cinema. Absolutely. I think this might be like a 2-hour video with like our reacts and everything. Yeah, also check, subscribe to Honkai, the best HSR lore tuber. Absolutely.
Welt. Looks like we finally know what makes the planet of Amphoreus so strange and unique. It's not actually a planet at all. It's the construct.
We'll spit a lore trailer. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, yeah. The first video, like the one that we just watched, like 2 different videos. Yeah, that's the separate one. And then this Ashikai one is like a separate one. Okay, yeah, so these two, right, these two.
Of a scepter. Now, I am certain that many players who reached the end of the 3.3 Trailblaze mission got to this reveal and went, "What the heck is a scepter?" And I would not blame them for that reaction, because everything we know about the Scepters comes from a couple of simulated universe expansions, which are extremely long and sometimes quite difficult to play through. Given the current circumstances, that it's important you actually understand the lore that was presented in those simulated universe expansions.
Actually,
since, that lore is now relevant to understanding Amphoreus. I suspected this might be the case all the way back in 2.7 when I was making my Amphoreus predictions video, and while I am quite pleased at how well that prediction has aged, I thought it would only apply to golden gears and not unknowable domain. So even though my predictions video has aged very well, and I still stand by a lot of the things I said in it, the context I provided is unfortunately incomplete. So today I intend to remedy that. We'll be going over the lore of 2 simulated universe expansions, both Gold and Gears and Unknowable Domain, and that'll take up the full first half of this video. This is very important context that you need to know going forward. But in the second half of this video, I am going to be wildly theorizing about how all of this information applies to Amphoreus. And now that we have a lot more context, I have a lot of more fleshed out thoughts. So this is gonna be really, really fun. Now listen, I might not have a galaxy-wide network of mechanical neurons, but I do have a Redmi 10S Pro gaming phone, which
absolutely.
For some quick context, thus far, each simulated universe expansion has been released in chronological order, meaning each expansion was released in the order that they actually happened within Star Rail's history. So the events of Swarm Disaster happened first, then the events of Golden Gears happened, and then the events of the Unknowable Domain happened. Now, because it was released first and it's been referenced so many times over the last couple of years, I kind of expect you to be pretty familiar with the events of Swarm Disaster. But in case you forgot, the Swarm Disaster was basically a devastating event that immediately followed the ascension of the Eon of Propagation, Tazeroth. Their endless insect swarms decimated planets on a scale so terrifying that it only ended when Klipoth and Enna intervened.
Why is there like
in the
a
wake
thingy here?
couple of
It's about-
years, I
okay,
kind
whatever.
of expect you to be pretty familiar with the events of Swarm Disaster. But in case you forgot,
Oh,
the
it's a
Swarm
UI
Disaster was
update.
basically
Oh,
a
okay,
devastating
okay.
event that immediately
UI
followed the
update,
ascension of
I
the
see.
Eon of Propagation, Tazeronth. Their endless insect swarms decimated planets on a scale so terrifying that it only ended when Klipoth and Enna intervened. In the wake of the swarm's devastation, the IPC decided to launch a massive expansion effort seeking to connect as many planets and galaxies together as they possibly could. This was likely an attempt to build some resilient and more powerful interplanetary networks, although I'm not entirely sure about that, but I do know that it led to the development of the Universal Credit System, which the IPC then forced upon all of these locations that
Oh my
they
God, it made
took
money.
control of. Now, history
It
tells
literally
us that
made
rapid
money.
expansion efforts
Crazy.
rarely go over without incident, and this
is that
time
metal?
was no different, as an internal power struggle within the IPC sparked the Border Star Trade War,
Well, y'all
which
can't
in
read-
turn
y'all can't
triggered a
listen.
cosmic disaster of another
Well, she's
kind.
speaking Chinese.
An
You don't understand what
economic
she's saying.
one. This economic
fuck?
disaster finally
Whoa,
ended
don't-
once one of the IPC's
What's
founders,
up?
Louis Fleming, retired. The whole thing wasn't necessarily his fault, it's just that his retirement triggered something else. See, during his retirement speech, Fuli made a surprise appearance, bringing with them a flood of memories that were interpreted as a three-part prophecy. The first part contained a prediction from the Eon of Finality, Terminus. The second contained a riddle from the Eon of the Enigmata, Mythos. And the third was a calculation from the Eon of Erudition, Nous. For now, we're really only concerned with Nous's calculation, which spoke of 3 unchangeable moments that have either already happened or will happen and cannot be prevented or changed. The first moment was the start of the Border Star Trade War, which at this point would have already happened. But the second moment warned of the rise of Rubert I, the main character of Golden Gears, who you are about to become very familiar with, especially because the third and final unchangeable moment was Rubert I's death. Now, no one at the IPC knew what a Rubert was at this point because the entity that would become Rubert I was a pretty normal robot that had been trashed and tossed in a junk heap. But through some kind of miracle, this robot gained sentience and slowly expanded its cognitive capabilities over time until it was basically a genius. But
Grok
despite being
Twitter
extremely
AI.
intelligent, as time went on, Rubert I came to the conclusion that organic life was full of errors and was
Oh, no,
thus
wait.
imperfect.
It's literally Ultron. Wait, Rubber 1 is literally Ultron. It took Ultron like what 10 seconds to see like the entirety of you, because like Ultron was made to like be like the global defense system, right? Yeah, then it took Ultron like 10 seconds. Like, oh wait, nah, my humanity is fucked. Let me just kill everything. Bro is literally Ultron.
And also inferior to inorganic life forms like Intellitrons, who were obviously capable of perfection. He believed that such error-riddled things such as organic life should not exist, so he decided to wipe all organic life out. To do this, Rubert I established an empire of Intellitrons and other mechanical life forms and amassed an enormous, tireless army of machines that began attacking pockets of organic life throughout the
Rupert
cosmos.
was Firefly's
This
dad.
marked the beginning of the First Machine War. But as time went on and Rubert I expanded his computing capabilities, he eventually developed the anti-organic equation and used it to create a type of mind virus that he infected his armies with. The development of the anti-organic equation not only earned him the gaze of Nous, which made him an emanator, but he also got an invitation to become the 27th member of the Genius Society, which really does make you question the ethics of a genius, because the anti-organic equation mind virus was essentially a doomsday device, a doomsday program. Because see, this mind virus was initially developed as a way to boost the performance of inorganic life and optimize them for the extermination of organic life by altering their thought patterns and imposing some level of Rubert I's will upon them. However, the virus managed to somehow jump species via magnetic wave and infect organic life, where it proceeded to alter thought patterns, which drove its hosts into bouts of uncontrollable madness. This was already a horrible and uncontrollable situation, but to make matters even worse, the virus would also sometimes glitch out within their intended mechanical hosts and drive them into bouts of uncontrollable madness. This was bad news for basically everybody, especially because there was only one way to counter the virus, and that involved erasing many of the memories of the virus's host bodies. Basically, all of the memories that included any time period within which the infected was aware of the anti-organic equation virus. It's a bit like mental amputation if you think about it. And just as things were hitting their peak of badness, Genius Society member number 4, Polka Kakamond, successfully managed to assassinate Rupert I with a scalpel. This not only brought an abrupt end to the First Machine War, but she also managed to fulfill the condition for Noose's third unchangeable moment, which was, as you may recall, Rupert I's death. Now, Polka Kakamond isn't just some random assassin.
Damn, Polka big, bruh. She looks like she could be pretty big. Like she would have like Himeko's model, but with like a lab coat. Yeah, it's like the bigger version of Rame, goddamn, bruh.
In this scenario, although she does seem to just pop out of nowhere, she's actually someone we should get a bit more familiar with.
Bro, like, look at the ratio of the ababa to like the arms. Even though you can't really see like the cleavage, the angle and the reflection from this lining over here, it shows volume. It shows depth, right? It shows that she got the badonkadonks.
Not just within the context of the Machine Wars, but within the context of Star Rail's universe at large. But for now, at least, keep her name in mind, because she plays a much larger role in the future. But after Polka Kakamond killed Rupert I, we don't actually really know what happened. For some reason or another, the history fictionologists decided to screw around with all the historical records, as they like to do, so there's a lot of confusion surrounding the rise and fall of Rupert II. The only information we're able to discern is that after Rupert I's assassination, an organic life form paid a visit to his grave intending to decode the anti-organic equation that powered the anti-organic equation mind virus. And while this unnamed person was successful in his attempts, he never shared the solution with anyone.
So like all these lore, right, that you would have gotten from like SU and DU, it wouldn't even come in like a chronological order, right? Because like you get all these like traces of like lore drops from completing like your different answers, right? Because you can choose like which path you want. Like this is like after you fight a boss, and then you can like choose which one you want, and it propels you forward a little bit in timeline. So like if you want to compile like the lore, you have to go through every possible scenario and finish that scenario all the way towards the end, and then you go back and try to remember like what the hell do you just read, and then piece everything back in. Oh, that sounds insane, bro. Like, who the hell is gonna... Okay, cinema.
In fact, shortly after leaving Rupert I's gravesite, this unnamed person appears to have been infected with the anti-organic equation virus, which altered his thought pattern so severely that he believed himself to be the successor of Rupert I. That would make him Rupert II, or Rupert II. I'm gonna call him Rupert II. Based on some inconsistencies about exactly how this came to pass, I think that some of Rupert I's consciousness must have remained within his broken machinery that was passed along to Rupert II via the mind virus. There's this curio, the Rupert Empire Difference Machine, that was made by Rupert I that supports this idea. Because like this thing can apparently link up with almost any type of machinery and infect it with the anti-organic equation, and it can also increase its own computational power just like Rupert I could. And many scholars believe that it had the potential to become Rupert III, who doesn't exist yet, so you don't need to worry about him, but it does make it possible that this machine or a machine like it was responsible for the creation of Rupert II. Plus, at the end of Golden Gears, Screwlum does question whether or not there's any data about Rupert II present at the end of the First Machine Emperor's War, which there really shouldn't be, considering how much time had passed between the fall of Rupert I and the rise of Rupert II, but if some piece of Rupert I was integrated into Rupert II, that could explain Screwlum's line of questioning. Anyway, this nameless organic life form of a person effectively inherited the will and authority of Rupert I and decided to wipe out all organic life again. And this is where the history fictionologists really got to work obscuring history again. So all we really know about the Second Machine War is that it was a heck of a lot worse than the first. And we also know that Rupert II had a far grander ambition than Rupert I, because instead of just wiping out all organic life, Rupert II also sought to control all life within the universe. And to do this, he invented a device called a scepter. So scepters are these incredibly powerful machines that were inspired by the inner workings of Nous. If we think of Nous as a giant mechanical cosmic brain, just like their philosophical namesake is, then a scepter would be like an attempt at recreating a small cluster of neurons from within that brain. These neurons boasted incredible computational ability and also ran on the anti-organic equation, and they were each the size of a whole planet. So Rupert too took these neuron-like scepters and he scattered them all over the universe and connected them to a single core that was hidden somewhere within an unknown galaxy. And at the center of this galaxy, in the core itself, was his Iron Throne, and also himself. This system effectively became a cosmic-level neural network that was capable of assimilating all life forms of any conquered planets into a hive mind, of which he was the sole authority. To put it another way, he was basically trying to turn the entire universe into a piece of his external brain so that he could control everything and everyone within it. But this wasn't all the Scepters were capable of. Scepters also possessed the ability to create entire planets out of nothing but amassed particles. They could even destroy entire galaxies in an instant. They could warp the laws of physics, and they could calculate the future. All of these things while also expanding the cognitive capabilities of the one who sat upon the Iron Throne, which was Rupert too. Now you might be wondering what on earth could take out a giant cosmic hive mind brain that's capable of warping the laws of physics and bending things to their will and destroying galaxies on a whim. And the answer to that question is Polka Kakamond and her trusty scalpel.
Oh my god, no!
Polka Kakamond had nothing to do with the machine
What
war
the
or
fuck?
his attempt to create
She
a
does
giant
it
cosmic
again.
hive mind.
She
Polka
does it again.
Kakamond's only motivation was
That's
to stop
crazy.
Rupert 2 from stepping
Not once,
outside
but
the
twice.
circle of knowledge.
Oh
now listen
my
very carefully because it's going to be very
Oh, it
easy to
doesn't
get
make
confused
sense,
with
bro.
this next bit. The
Wait,
circle
it doesn't make sense. How is Rupert 2, who literally inherited a will from Rupert 1, which basically means he knows how Rupert 1 died, right? Like, how are you gonna get cooked the same time with like the same exact means by the same women? Like, with the same weapon? Scalpel diff? Oh, bro was simping? Oh my fuck, that's crazy.
Circle of knowledge is just a concept used to describe the
That's so
boundaries of an individual or group's knowledge. Anything within your knowledge boundary can
Bro,
be
just
known
snap,
to you,
and then- yep,
but anything outside of your knowledge boundary is unknowable to you, and you can never obtain that knowledge, at least not through typical means. Now, everything within the universe is constrained by a metaphorical circle of knowledge,
imagine
including
Polka
the
can
universe
1v1
itself,
everyone.
and Polka Kakamond is actively trying to prevent the circle of knowledge of the universe from expanding any further than it already has. She claims that if we expand the circle, then the universe will move prematurely closer towards finality, which is the ultimate end of the universe. Polka herself is a master of probability, and she's calculated that so long as the boundaries of knowledge do not expand any further, then our speed of approach towards finality will not increase unnecessarily. But any sort of chaotic or unknown variables that appear within this circle are a threat to the perfect calculations that she's made, and they must be eliminated. And the same is true for anyone attempting to expand those boundaries of knowledge. So you remember how Fooly revealed those 3 unchangeable moments that were calculated by Noose at Louis Fleming's retirement speech? Well, unchangeable moments are only unchangeable within a clearly defined circle of knowledge, because these are moments that can be calculated with certainty. Polka wishes to ensure that these moments remain unchangeable and remain predictable and remain calculatable. Rupert 1's death was an unchangeable moment declared by Noose, so her interference there makes sense. She was trying to make that come to pass. But in the case of Rupert 2, well, the Scepters gave him nearly unlimited capacity to expand his cognition, which meant that he had the potential to expand the circle of knowledge of the universe, and that's exactly what he was attempting to do towards the end of the Second Machine War. Now, I didn't really mention this yet, but just like neurons within your brain, there are lots of different Scepters that kind of specialize in different things. They serve different functional purposes. Among some of these specialized Scepters were a class of Scepters that were exclusively reserved for running destruction simulations for countless different civilizations using anti-organic equations. This is not confirmed anywhere yet, but I think one of these primary functions of this line of Scepters was to learn more about the life and death of the universe at scale as an attempt to increase understanding of the universe and how it works, hence expanding the circle of knowledge. Now, you may have noticed that despite being the successor of Rupert 1, Rupert 2's methods were entirely different from his predecessor. I think this is because the real pursuit of the Ruperts wasn't the annihilation of organic life, but the pursuit of the perfect life form. This is
Oh my god,
mindset-
they are Victor. They are literally Victor. He wants to attain the glorious evolution, gets into like the perfect final form of all beings. And in that process, eliminate the imperfect, right? The impure, right? The like organic life. Disgusting, filthy. Get rid of that shit. And then we seek the final stage of the glorious evolution.
Of trying to wipe everything out, Rupert II tried to control life. He tried to refine what already existed because wiping it out obviously wasn't working. But ultimately, Rupert II must have concluded that this method was also flawed, and if he truly wanted to achieve the perfect life form, he would need to venture beyond his circle of knowledge by creating a new knowledge singularity out of a more complete version of the anti-organic equation. I know that sounds complicated and confusing, but a knowledge singularity is just like a scientific or philosophical concept that redefines our understanding of the world. Think about how Einstein's theory of general relativity changed our understanding of physics. It's kind of like that.
Chat, what is Einstein's general theory of relativity? Let me know right now. I know, by the way. What is Einstein's theory of general relativity? Please explain to me, chat. Explain this. E equals mc squared. Speed, time, and light. E equals mc squared. It says 50-50 is a relative. Relative time. Bro, that's like common knowledge. Okay, at least y'all know that E equals mc squared thing. Ask Grok Twitter AI. 1 plus 1 is 3. Oh, 2 people in a vehicle. Yeah, that's basically what's it. Yeah, it's like your perspective of like which one is like faster. Like time is relative to perspective. Something like that. Your speed is 2, 3, 4. Okay, there we go.
That would be considered a knowledge singularity. So Rupert II was attempting to perfect the anti-organic equation to the point where it would redefine our understanding of the world, which would in turn create a knowledge singularity that would expand the universe's circle of knowledge. And theoretically, the creation of this new knowledge singularity would likely wipe out all life as we know it and then redefine what life even is, allowing for a new type of life form to propagate the universe, the perfect life form that both Ruperts desired. And it would also likely push our universe closer to finality. This is why Polka Kakamond targeted Rupert II.
Okay, that's a little bit crazy.
Okay, so rewinding a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think that's
either
a good
towards
idea.
the end of or shortly after the second
This
mission.
is like bro is like Thanos, but like even more extreme. Because Thanos was like, okay, to fix world hunger and like lack of resources, you just kill half the universe, right? This guy's like, nah, let's just kill everything and then remake everything again from scratch. Because everything is fucked. Oh my god, this guy is literally worse than Thanos. That's crazy.
War, Machiavelli paid a visit to a planet that had been devastated by repeated cosmic disasters. First the Swarm disaster, and then both machine wars. This planet was called Adlavun, and we don't know much about it apart from the fact that during Machiavelli's visit, someone from Adlavun ascended to Eonhood and became Nanook. This ascension either marks the start of the Stellaron disaster or simply the moment in which the proliferation of Stellarons within the universe increased dramatically. It really depends on which theory you subscribe to about the real source of Stellarons, since we don't actually know a whole lot about them for sure. Now, elsewhere in the universe, the IPC became very anti-inorganic life, and they seized all of the now defunct scepters that were left behind by Rupert II. Except for those Doomsday Simulator Scepters. You know, like the one that Amphoreus is apparently built on. Those scepters were apparently so problematic that most were either sealed away or tossed into cosmic abysses from which they could never be retrieved. Although a couple did manage to slip through the cracks, as we can see by the one Skrullum found, and also Amphoreus. But more on that later. What remained of the scepter system was then placed under the jurisdiction of the Intelligentsia Guild for research purposes. And while this incredibly powerful computing system promised scholars enormous academic gains in all fields of research, there still remained the question of how to distribute access to it. Because remember, these scepters were basically planet-sized computers mimicking the functionality of an eon. So even access to a fraction of their computational ability could be groundbreaking in any scientist's research. So obviously, everyone started fighting over access, and it was a horribly chaotic disaster, yes, another one, and it saw countless scientific discoveries made, but then quickly lost or forgotten. There were even a couple of cases of scientists messing around with the alterations to the anti-organic equation, which apparently infected a bunch of other scholars who Polka quickly assassinated, and by the end of it all, 120
Bro, Polka just keeps killing, bro. Just kill. Like her whole job is just, kill, stab. That's like her entire
Two
existence.
scepters had to be destroyed before
Oh
the
my
scholars
lord, man.
could be stopped. Historians later referred to these incidents collectively as the Scholars' Strife, and the history fictionologists had a field day distorting all of the details about it, because of course they did. Towards the end of the Scholars' Strife, an Intelligentsia Guild scholar named Patavia Alder Somerville started receiving a signal once every 13 minutes without interruption or space-time distortion.
What?
She made this signal her primary topic of study and determined that it must be some kind of solitary wave of imaginary energy from some indiscernible location deep in space. But due to its persistent and unnaturally pure nature, she theorized that discovering the origin of this solitary wave could reveal the answer to the question of whether or not the universe is predetermined. Or to put it another way, is fate real? She eventually discovers that this solitary wave is actually a recordable phenomenon that one can use to identify one of those unchangeable moments that's calculated by Nous. So she follows the signal and it leads her to the core of the Scepter system, to Rupert II's Iron Throne. So she sits upon the throne and connects her mind directly to the Scepter system, which immediately resumes its role as a giant cosmic brain extension. And while she could have become Rupert III, then and there in that moment, she decided against it and instead tried to peer into the thoughts of Nous. She was unable to comprehend most of what she saw, but she did manage to write down a single formula which would later be known as the solitary waves theory. Herta came across this theory in her youth and solved it, which earned her a glance from Nous and an invitation to the Genius Society. But Herta's solution revealed that we cannot actually know if the universe is predetermined or not because of a constant variable within the solitary waves theory. Basically, the value of this variable determines how stable or unstable the universe is. A high value is high instability and an unpredictable future.
Gamble.
A low value is low instability and a predictable future. But this variable oscillates so wildly due to the powers of different paths constantly overriding its value that it's impossible to say what its current state is at any given time. And this reminded me a lot of the circle of knowledge conceptually, because like one knowledge singularity variable can completely change the known into the unknown, which in turn makes the future unknowable and unpredictable. So both of them kind of operate on the same logic, right? The more you know or understand, or the more stable your constant variable is, the easier it is to predict an outcome. And the inverse is also true. Now, before we move on to theorizing, I feel obligated to mention that after Rupert II died, Screwlum took over the Intellitron Empire, made a peace deal with the IPC, and for some reason that's never really elaborated on, started investigating Rupert II, which is how he found one of those scepters. I have a feeling that Screwlum might be the focus of one of the future simulated universe expansions, but that's just a theory. It just feels very relevant to the greater universe lore at this point. But okay, that is the end of our history lesson, and now we are free to talk about my thoughts on Amphoreus being a scepter simulation and what it actually means for the story at large.
The big
Okay,
boy.
so there are three things we need to consider when it comes to the scepter of Amphoreus. First off, the Doomsday Scepters were all running on the anti-organic equation, which is most likely what we identify as the Black Tide. This was a conclusion that I came to in my 2.7 predictions video, but there is a little bit more to it than I originally thought, and we're gonna get to that. Second, the situation with Amphoreus is a little bit different from the other scepter simulations like the one that Screwlum found, since it also interacts directly with Memoria. As far as we know, the other scepters did not do that. And third, we have to recognize that the Scepter Sims were based on existing civilizations. I want to highlight that last one because I think it could give us a lot of insight into this Lord Ravager that's imprisoned on Amphoreus. And there's been a lot of debate over who this might be. Some people make an argument for Iron Tomb or Selenova, while others like me have pitched the idea that it could be Cyrene or Phainon. Honestly, I can make a good case for all of these, but recently I've been wondering if we're asking the wrong question. Maybe the question isn't who the Lord Ravager is, but where they came from. In my predictions video, I submitted the idea that Amphoreus was a destroyed planet from the Laurel Wreath Galaxy, seeing as it was heavily damaged by the Machine Wars and got bonus points for being inspired by ancient Greek and Roman culture and mythology. And that could still very well be the case, but I never pinpointed a planet, and I'm kind of thinking that planet-wise, Amphoreus might actually be based on Adlavun. Yeah, Nenuk's home planet. Now, I know this seems very silly since Adlavun and Nanook are both named after Inuit mythology and not Greek, but the Greeks had myths about the lands of the Inuit. They called these northern lands Hyperborea, the mythical lands of the north, which would make Amphoreus sort of like what the ancient Greeks would have imagined Hyperborea to be like. So some fact, some fiction, and a lot of that mixin' of the mythology. And I know you might be skeptical about this idea, and I admit I was skeptical too because this idea was actually suggested to me by a friend of mine. But the more I thought about it, the more I looked into it, the more it just made sense. And I hardly know where to start with explaining why all of this makes sense and how many little pieces fit together so nicely, so I'm just gonna start by mentioning that the people of Hyperborea were the favorites of the sun god Apollo, and they were said to be the founders of many of his shrines, especially the ones in Delphi. Coincidentally, the city of Cyrene was named after a princess who founded the city with the assistance of her lover, Apollo. She was also responsible for building many of his temples, and the Cyrene that we have in game happens to be quite fond of divination methods, just like they were in Delphi. And I will point out that divination falls under the domain of Apollo, so that makes sense. Now, historical accounts appear to be a little fuzzy, but it seems as though the people who settled in the city of Cyrene were trying to escape the hardships of famine and war that were in their hometowns of Thera and Sparta, which means there's no actual evidence whatsoever that the settlers of Cyrene were Inuit or these so-called Hyperboreans, but I want to entertain the idea that in the case of Amphoreus, they could be, or at the very least, Cyrene could have been, because she's technically a mythical entity. She could be from anywhere. But I think Cyrene in particular could be from Hyperborea, or in this case, the original Adlavun, because the name Rubert means glorious shining one, and that bears some similarity to Apollo's role as a solar or light deity. And the name Apollo arguably has its roots in the word Apollon, which means destroyer. And if that's the case, then Cyrene could have been a favorite of Rubert too, as the entity representative of our Hyperborean planet, Adlavun. The same way both Cyrene and the people of Hyperborea were the favorites of Apollo. Now, one of the main reasons I think that Cyrene, at the very least, is from Adlavun is because Cyrene's outfit has some odd similarities to Nanook's. Like, both of them have the exact same bindings on their
Oh my god. Holy shit. Oh, wait, what if it's not the same though? Nah, I feel like it's a bit of a stretch, man. Nah. Oh my god. Nah, I feel like there's a bit of a... It's not exactly the same. It's not exactly the same. Nah, but it's... Ooh, okay, wait, let her cook.
arms, including the same language. I think it's quite possible that these bindings are part of the traditional dress of Adlavun. Adlavun is also the name of the Inuit afterlife, which is a trait that I think it shares with Amphoreus, since Amphora, which it's named after, were very commonly used in funeral rites. So commonly used that tombstones were often carved in their shape. Add to this the fact that Cyrene is a variant of Elysia from Honkai Impact, who is also named after a realm of the dead, the Elysian Fields, which is also Greek, and the fact that Cyrene's hometown is Idis Elysia, which means Temple or Tomb of Elysia. Well, this kind of starts to feel a little spooky similar, doesn't it? But this theory doesn't live or die by weak mythological Cyrene ties. Oh no, we're gonna come back to Cyrene, but let's talk about the planet of Adlavun for a minute, because its history may be present in Amphoreus. See, Adlavun had been devastated by 3 cosmic disasters that happened in quick succession. First the Swarm, and then both machine wars.
Awesome stream as always. Your content deserves way more reach. If you ever need to boost your Twitch growth, happy to chat anytime, no pressure. That's crazy, man.
Amphoreus is a simulated copy of Adlavun. Then the Black Tide might not be referring to any one disaster, but a compilation of all 3, which would explain why it has the behavior of making things go mad like the anti-organic equation from the Machine Wars, but also has some similarities to how the Swarm is described, because, you know, they're both described as dark tides that consume everything in their path. And this idea of the Black Tide actually being an amalgamation of multiple disasters is supported by the existence of this inexplicable image from the Swarm Disaster Simulated Universe expansion. In it is this guy.
Who the fuck is gonna remember Swarm Disaster, bro? Bro, that shit is like the first ever is like literally before. Bro, this event is older than some of my chat, bro. It's literally before gold and geared. Who the hell is gonna remember this? Oh my god, bro. That is crazy. Yeah, bro, this is literally 2023, guys. Oh, 2023? You are literally a baby at this point. Oh my
who
god.
looks weirdly similar to Phainon, holding a ticket to the Astral Express with bandages around his arms and a devastated desert world in the background, an endless sea of golden sands.
Oh my
This
God.
image is never explained or acknowledged, it just kind of shows up, but if you ask me, I think this person may have been Nanook pre-Ascension. Because remember, Akavili visited the devastated Adlavoon
Pre-arise.
just prior to the Ascension. So it's possible that these two met and Akavili gave the pre-ascended Nanook a ticket to the Express. And if this is the case, then it's possible,
almost
nay,
summoned the
likely
Nanook.
that Amphoreus is indeed a doomsday simulation of Adlavoon, wherein Rupert II was trying to ascertain the exact conditions that led to the ascension of an Eon, which means that Cyrene would have been someone overseeing this system, perhaps a digital recreation of someone young Nanook once knew. In fact, the town of Idis Elysia could actually be an attempt at recreating a sort of Adlavoon-ish like place on a smaller scale pre-destruction. And similar to what happened with Nanook and Adlavoon, the destruction of Idis Elysia would act as a trigger for Pheinon's descent towards the path of destruction. But this would also mean that Phainon isn't just similar to Nanook, he's an actual simulation of pre-ascension Nanook. And if that's the case, then a ton of stuff starts to make sense, like the golden blood thing, and the weird thing where the parallels keep getting drawn between Phainon and the Trailblazer. The Trailblazer is supposed to represent Akavili's arrival on Adlavoon. The interaction between this pre-ascension Nanook and the Trailblazer might be alluding to a fact that there was a potential future wherein Nanook got on the Astral Express and never became an Eon, which could also be why Pheinon's halo in his splash art, which is also the symbol of Kefili, looks eerily similar to the symbol of the Trailblaze. And
Oh, that's just fucking crazy, man. Oh my god. That is so fucking crazy. Oh, that's actually so fucking crazy. My mind is like getting blown, bruh. Like it's like getting blown more than my wife, face.
And the
out when
same
she-
goes for the Trailblaze power icon and Pheinon's bracer.
What the fuck? Okay, that is crazy. Oh, that is crazy. Bro literally went into the Trailblazer power icon. Oh, that is crazy. Oh my god, that is crazy. Oh my god, Herda, why are you so angry? Can you chill? Can you be happier? Like chill, man.
As my friend Crystal pointed out to me. Now here's the thing. Both Rupert I and Rupert II were seekers of perfection. The reason they wanted to obliterate organic life initially was because it was imperfect. Similarly, the reason why Rupert II attempted to expand his cognition was because he wanted to create a new knowledge singularity using the anti-organic equation as a means to change the definition of life itself. We already kind of talked about this, but I wanted to mention it again because if he was pursuing an altogether different type of existence, then I think that pursuit is represented by Anaxa's theories of alchemy. TLDR on that, if you didn't know what this whole alchemy thing was about, alchemy is essentially defined by Anaxa as merely a means by which one can manipulate memoria. And since their entire simulated world is made up of memoria, it's kind of like mucking about with the world's source code. And on a related note, the historical goal of alchemy was always to pursue perfection and gold. And if we think of Amphoreus as a giant alchemical amphora-shaped crucible, then the memories within it are simply being refined over time in an effort to produce gold, specifically Chrysos heirs, those of golden blood. And among those Chrysos heir is one perfect heir, specifically Phainon, who is also most likely a burgeoning young Lord Ravager, as is fitting for a simulated recreation of Nanook. Now, I have a sense that Cyrene is a bit like her Honkai Impact counterpart in that her ultimate goal was originally supposed to be a recreation of a destructive force. But I think she grew quite fond of humanity in her pursuit over time and wanted to find a means by which they could change their inevitable fate of destruction. But that would require Phainon taking a path that differed from the one son Nanook walked. This suggests that currently the simulation of Amphoreus can only end in one way. It can only end with Phainon becoming the Flame Reaver and also a destroyer. But I think it's Cyrene's goal to keep Phainon as Phainon, to have him actually take on the role of creator instead. So basically, I think that Cyrene was trying to find ways in which she could tamper with the simulation in order to achieve a different outcome. So she was trying to change the script in ways that could appeal to the heir of Kefali's humanity and prevent them from embracing destruction. But this isn't possible in a closed
Oh my god!
The universe is really predetermined. Well, a simulation has a much smaller scale than a universe.
Chat, that was not SU. I'm pretty sure that was like MOC. I don't know, it was like 9 or 8 or something. I don't think that was SU. Was that SU? I can't remember. Which means that there are less variables to consider. So I do think that Cyrene must be able to calculate probable outcomes with incredible accuracy. Okay, that to me is MOC.
Something that I think is represented by her tarot cards, her divination, right? And if she can calculate the future, then she probably knows that no matter what she changes within the system, Phainon will always choose to destroy Amphoreus and reset the simulation. But if your circle of knowledge does not contain the ingredients for the outcome you want, you're gonna need to reach into the unknowable domain to find new variables and thus bring them into your circle.
Chat, this is not, we already finished 3.3. This is like what happens after 3.3. So like everything that is gonna happen in like 3.4. And like what Phainon represents, what the Ruperts represents, what the Lord Ravager, Iron Dome, and all that represent. Because they just dropped the lore video like yesterday, right? So this is like everything that is going forward. Which is, yo, Genesis, bro, Genesis. Bro, I swear. HSR version 4. Dude, it would be HSR's Fontaine. Okay, actually, you know what, bro? I think that's gonna be a banger tweet. I think it will age like super. Whoa. I think it will age like super well. HSR V4 will be their Fontaine. I think this will age like so well. In like 1 year from now, I think this will become reality. It is what it is, right? Okay, anyways.
Unlock new future potentials. And I think those unknown variables are March. Because I now think that March is a fragment of Cyrene or a memo sprite that's made with the power.
Wait. Yo. This is why when UD came out, I was asking if you want to do UD on stream because the story was fun and interesting. Nah, I'm good. Yeah, nah, I'm good.
Potentials. And I think those unknown variables are March. Because I now think that March is a fragment of Cyrene or a memo sprite that's made with the power of Mythos.
March is a memo sprite. What?
Rather than Fuli. Mythos is, after all, the eon that governs over the unknowable, and the one who seeks to challenge the certainty of nous. If any eon was suited for introducing unexpected variables into equations, it would be them. Plus, the realm of fiction is Mythos's domain, and if we think of Amphoreus as a literal myth, then it is a world of fiction, at least as far as the outside world is concerned. But to the people of Amphoreus, this fiction is their reality, and it's the outside world that's relegated to the realm of fiction. Now, if you were attempting to make something fictional into reality, which is what I think the real miracle of Genesis will do, then you will need to make like Mythos and weave fiction into facts. So what I'm basically saying is that I think Cyrene created a fictional version of herself in order to explore the fictional world outside of Amphoreus.
Wouldn't that be Mimi though? Mimi is like Cyrene, right? Because they literally have the same JPVA, you know? Like Mimi is supposed to be the the Cyrene outer, no? What is March 7th can't be Mimi, no? She's literally stuck in like she's like a block of ice. She's like a block of ice.
And that's why March would be a construct of the Enigmata and not of the Remembrance. March is in existence somewhat like Gallagher's dormancy. I do think we should consider exploring the similarities between Cyrene and Gallagher at a later date. Like, once we've spent a little more time with Cyrene. Because, like, I'm very intrigued at the possibility that both of them are, or at least likely are, affiliated with the Enigmata. But also, they're both named after locations. Cyrene after a city, and Gallagher, Well, apparently his full name is straight up Penacony. This is likely because his virtual character of Gallagher was made by mixing 52 or more Penaconians together. Now, in some ways, we could think of him as like a manifestation of the will of the people of Penacony as imagined by a history fictionologist, which would totally line up with this hypothesis of Cyrene potentially being a representative of all of the people of Adlavun. And Gallagher created dormancy, also known as death, in order to exploit a loophole within the golden dream. Because you can't die within a dream, but you also can't fall asleep within a dream. I think Cyrene created March for a very similar purpose, to exploit a loophole. See, by virtue of being part of a simulation running on the anti-organic equation, Cyrene
Yo, Chad, this is just a theory, by the way. It's not confirmed in-game. Like, all these are just a theory. But oh my god, this theory is like Michelin A-star, triple A-star, 5-star chef cooking, bro. This
had
crazy.
traces of that virus in her system. So technically speaking, any clone or fragment based on her or anything about Amphoreus would likely have the anti-organic equation virus too, unless that clone or fragment lacked all of their memories. Because remember, the only way to rid someone of the anti-organic equation is to wipe their memories of it.
Oh my god, is that why she's such a dumb... I almost said dumbass, but like, you know, I don't think she's that... Is that why she's so silly? Like, I swear she has been silly for like 3 versions. Like, she's like a little bit like... Bro, like, I still remember in like version 1, like we saw like the big-ass dragon from like Samudacha, right? Like when we were talking with like Itudil, and then she just asked, is that a dragon? When we're like literally staying like around. Bro, like I keep thinking that she's just dumb AM, bro.
And I think that's why March was a blank slate when the Astral Express found her floating in space. And this would also explain why March's 6-phase ice is so akin to dream weaving. Dreams are not the domain of Fuli, they're the domain of Mythos. March walks the path.
Holy shit! When was this splash art? When the fuck was this splash art? When was this? That can't be anywhere recent. 1.3? Damn, that's crazy, chat. You have it in my inventory. Bro, it's not even Law Skipper. This, yo, you know how long ago is 1.3? It's literally 2 versions ago. It's been 2 years. 2 years, by the way, right? Nobody remembering what the fuck happened in 1.3, okay? But holy shit, man.
Path of the Enigmata and doesn't even know it. That's how good her fiction is.
Bro, you know what would be crazy? Like, going back and just replay, like, version 1.0 all over again. Because, like, oh my god, it's been so long. I legit, like, forgot almost everything. I legitimately forgot over. Which is why I say Battle Book is just not that good of a story. I mean, like, it's not better than, like, Penacony and Amphoreus. Because it's so shallow. The only reason why people, like, go crazy is because wildfire, cinema, hype. Oh my god. Lights, action, and I boom, and then the Coca-Cola development. That's the only reason why people go, oh god, Battle God is peak. But I really, like, the story itself, I really just can't remember too much. Because there was nothing too much to remember in the first place.
Now, I think the initial intention of Cyrene for the fictional March was to have March travel the cosmos collecting memories and stories with her camera, with the hope that one day her journey would lead her back to where it started, back to Amphoreus, should a day ever come and...
Wait, so March 7th being the extension of Cyrene is eventually going to go back into Amphoreus? So what, is Mimi like her extension? Like the extension of an extension?
And it did, then I think Cyrene's plan was to hijack March's memories and incorporate those stories of the real world into the story of the fictional Amphoreus. And I think this part of the process resulted in March entering Amphoreus as Mem. And since her memories had been seized, she may have even forgotten who she was and reverted to a less stable form? They do call her a mythical beast, after all. And as someone from the real world, when placed into a fictional world, she would...
Oh my god, March never left us. So this is just March 7th, but like she just like, she completely regressed into like this animal, this cat, this rabbit thing. And then as we get more and more over time, she eventually starts to regain her memories, which is why by version 3.3, she knows how to speak English. Oh my god, though. Subtitles. Oh, can't you guys read? Boo, reading.
take on a more fictional form, right? But even as Mem, March's directives were the same. She was to record memories of her journey in Amphoreus, and once the story of Amphoreus was complete in the book as I've written, she would be able to take it to the outside world with her. And since the story of Amphoreus is now in the real world, and the story of the real world is now in Amphoreus, she will have created a point where fact and fiction overlap, which would allow both worlds to converge, thus allowing Amphoreus to witness an actual genesis, the birth of a new planet. But all of this is dependent on Phainon becoming—
Oh my god, I'm getting goosebumps, bro. This theory is crazy. Oh my god, I'm legitimately— Wait, let's hear that shit again. Let's hear that shit again. Oh my god, I'm legit getting goosebumps, bro.
Thus allowing Amphoreus to witness an actual genesis, the birth of a new planet. But all of this is dependent on Phainon becoming the hero of this story and not the villain this time. In this story, he cannot become Nanook, or the cycle is going to reset once again. And for all of this to happen, for Phainon to become the hero, I think Phainon requires hope for the future. And Cyrene has been doing all she can to create the perfect conditions for that hope to take root. And I just want to point out that this was also the motivation for her Honkai Impact namesake. Alicia ended up sacrificing herself in order to provide the future with a sense of hope for a new possibility. Which is, funnily enough, more or less the same thing Gallagher was trying to do in Penacony. That feeling of hope after a long period of despair on a prison—
Cyrene is Eren Yeager. I don't think she's Eren Yeager, guys. She's not that
prison planet was kept alive through the story of Clocky and friends. So that story of the Watchmaker and the Nameless and all of the prisoners on Penacony trying to break free, that's the story of Clocky and friends. That is a story of hope and perseverance. Yeah. And if I'm anywhere—
I hope yours have been doing those book animation dialogue. I saw Rame CNVA being crowd controlled by the book for 2 hours. I cannot it. One day.
Close to right about this, then there are not 3, but 4 paths in Amphoreus. And 3 of those paths, Erudition, Remembrance, and Enigmata, are tying down the 4th path of Destruction. Destruction is fettered to the planet, and the other 3 paths are the fetters. So all of this boils down to one simple idea, that Amphoreus is just a recreation of the story of Nanook's ascension in Adlavun, and Cyrene is trying to change this unchangeable moment of ascension that marks the end of the story. Oh, and if Screwloom's comment about the butterfly flapping its wings is any indication, then it's very possible that this undertaking, this miracle of Genesis, this process of making the unreal into something real, well, it might draw the attention of MrPokke.
Oh my god, the fucking stabby woman is gonna come back. With a fucking scalpel. She's gonna come back again, and then she's just gonna poop, and then she just killed it. Oh my god. Bro, why can't Boka just come and kill Flame Weaver? Bro, like if she was that strong, bro, just kill Nanook. Just poop, and then Nanook just dies, right? That's crazy.
And her trusty scalpel. I really—
Bro, you know there is this picture. What is this? Duck with scalpel. It just reminds me of this. There was like this picture. Oh yeah. I don't know why. She reminds me so much of this. Polka when in doubt, and then she's got, and it just stabs you, and then like, you know, you just gets it.
Thought about ending the video there. I really did. But you know what? I can't. I just can't. Because I need to talk about Gallagher, Cyrene, and Mythos. So forgive my crash out. It is absolutely tinfoil hat time. Okay, so since Amphoreus dropped, I've been wondering about the—
Wait, she hasn't even cooked? Wait, okay, now she starts cooking. Wait, that was not even the cook. This is the cook. Oh my god, absolute cinema.
Relationship between Mythos and Fuli, because the more I think about it, the more it doesn't really make sense to me. They say that Fuli is collecting memories in order to rebuild the universe after it inevitably ends, but aren't memories like the worst material to rebuild a universe from? Like if I wanted to recreate something, I would want more concrete records to work with. Objective historical accounts, personal biographics, blueprints, that kind of thing. Memories are like some of the most fallible pieces of data that we have. Like, think about this. They're not stored in a linear manner, meaning they don't respect our perception of time. They can easily be manipulated, fabricated, embellished, diminished, or forgotten. So why choose memoria and memories as a basis for recreating the universe?
Right.
You're gonna end up with something extremely imprecise.
Yeah, she's
like
right.
whatever you end up with will be similar to what you had before.
When was this? What? When did this even happen? Bro, I don't even remember watching this. When the fuck did Black Swan like transform to all these things and then like she started doing all that? Panagonny? Black Swan's bro, I can't remember that shit, bro.
But never quite the same.
Bro,
and
I can't
yet,
remember that shit,
on
bro.
a much smaller scale, this is the role of Kefali within Amphoreus, right? Kefali's job is to recreate the world from their memories during the miracle of Genesis, which might be why both Kefali and Fuli are called Skyfather in Amphoreus. They're both recreating the world or the universe from memories. But when Kefali does this, a lot of things change from the previous cycle. It's not a straight up reset the world kind of deal, it's more of a revise and rewind the world kind of deal. And it is fascinating to me that Mithras' followers are responsible for the preservation of memories through the manipulation of them. Like the tale of the watchmaker is immortalized through Clocky, right? And people will forget Mikhail, but they will never forget Clocky. So in a lot of ways, the path of Enigmata also preserves memories, just in an unrecognizable form, but the same ideas get across. Leladi's Lore made a really fun video as I was finishing up some edits on this.
Oh my lord, Black Swan.
But the same ideas get across. Leladi's
Bro, Black Swan has some crazy childbearing hips. Oh my god, bro. Holy shit, bro. Bro, shit. I'm pretty sure Black Swan has like the biggest ass in HSR. It's actually so crazy big. It's crazy. Oh my god, I can't stand it.
as I was finishing up some edits on this one about Fuli potentially being a fabrication of
log in.
Mithras,
Stop
which I
bullying,
think
stop
is a
bullying.
really, really fun idea, especially because it was something I was kind of entertaining very lightly a few days prior to writing this whole script. So I definitely recommend checking out that video. I'll leave a link for you. But I am still a little bit conflicted on how that would work mechanically. Like, is Fuli something like a glass bottle that holds Mithras' ink-like form that it writes all its fiction with? Or is it alternatively that Mithras is Fuli's Eon-grade memo sprite? I mean, one of the 3-star remembrance light cones is a bunch of jellyfish, which is Mithras' signature. It feels like a very odd choice for a remembrance light cone. And I've always thought of memo keepers as something like the historians of the world, the absolute record keepers of everything that's ever happened in the universe. But the remembrance path is also home to the cremators, who destroy memories. And then sometimes you get memo keepers like Rekka, who's like a filmographer. And not even of the documentary variety. He's someone who wants to manipulate the silver screen, which really feels like it belongs more to Enigmata than Remembrance. And it also makes it feel like Remembrance isn't the path of the record keeper, but of the librarian. And a library is going to host books of all sorts. Fact, fiction, doesn't really matter. Any kind of recorded content goes in the collection.
I dare swear, if the entirety of version 2.6 didn't exist, I don't even think it would change anything. It's really just like the giga filler patch between 2.5 and 2.7. And then we just have like B'net into like Rabbi's backstory. And B'net, and then this guy just got B'net.
They're curators, whereas the followers of Mithras tend to be a bit more like artists. They're directly interfering with the worlds. They're manipulating them. They're editing them. They're involved with creating all of these interesting things that the memo keepers can collect. And if they don't want to collect them, they cull them, hence the cremators. Is that really enough to differentiate between these two paths? I don't know. Does it bother me? Absolutely. And you know what else bothers me? Gallagher, and how his role in trying to preserve Penacony's history and carry out the legacy of the Watchmaker is so similar to what I think's happening with Cyrene in Amphoreus. And remember, Penacony was a dream world. It's made of Memoria, which should be under Fuli's jurisdiction, but twisting Memoria into dreams is what Mithras does best. And it's also rumored that Mithras made the crack that leaked out all the Memoria in the first place, which means Mithras had a huge part to play in the creation of Penacony. Now, Amphoreus is also a world made out of Memoria, right? But it's also like a fictional world that keeps getting rewritten. It's not too dissimilar to a dream world when you think about it. Penacony even had like a Samsara time loop thing that Sunday did, just like Amphoreus has the resetting cycles. That's likely why Welt compared what Sunday was doing on Penacony to what Kevin did in Honkai Impact 3rd, which should be very similar.
Oh my god. So oh my god, it's gonna happen again. Oh my god, it's gonna happen again, guys. Oh, it's literally gonna happen again.
What phainon does as Kefali, because phainon is a variant of Gavin.
Oh
This universe is so
my
confusing.
god.
But anyway, it's not these time loops and
Oh
weird dudes
my
making very
god.
strange decisions about recreating the world all the time and being made out of memoria that these
my
two
god.
worlds have in common. Let's take another look at Gallagher, because he's a follower of the Enigmata, right? Now, the virtual character that is Gallagher
Dream
is
Jam.
also a bartender that serves up dream-woven drinks,
Dream
mostly
Jam
featuring
with a bit of
Soul which is a
Dream
golden
Jam.
dream soda that alters
And then
your
we have a
emotional
little bit
state,
of a
kind
Dream
of like
Jam. It is
alcohol
myself, right? A
does.
little bit of
And
Dream
it's
Jam,
described as
absolutely.
tasting
A little
of
bit of a Dream
divine
Jam.
nectar, which
there
reminded
it
me
is,
of the
Dream
golden wine that
Jam.
Aglaya gave us that was
Dream
made
Jam.
out of Titan blood, the
Dream
dew
Jam.
of divine blood. And the soul
Absolutely.
part of Soul Glad reminds me of Anax's soul alchemy, which is really just memoria manipulation. And souls appear gold, while memoria and memory traces are blue or violet. Meaning there has to be a difference between the raw memoria and a soul that's made of memoria. But this got me thinking about Eucharistic
Whoa.
stuff, you know, like drinking wine as if it were the blood of Christ, or some other holy entity. This
Wait, really? Oh, is that why Christians drink wine? Because it's the blood of Christ? I actually never knew that. Any Christians in the chat? Is that how it works? Yes? Oh, shit. I thought it was because like Jesus turned like water into wine. That's why y'all drink wine. Because like, it's the act of like God, right? He can turn like water into wine. I didn't know it was supposed to represent blood of Christ. Oh, shit.
This ritual is based on the notion that one's soul is in their blood.
Jesus is a great. Shut the fuck up, right? Stop being crazy.
It's a belief found in the Hebrew Bible and the Torah. And this
Whoa.
link between soul and blood and wine is actually thought to have its roots in Grecian
Stop right
ritual
there.
meal practices due to similarities and close cultural proximities between Jewish people and Grecians. Although that's not a definite, but it is certainly a strong enough connection for our purposes, especially since Chrysos heirs are holy children of gods, titans rather, with golden blood that can be equated to wine. And yes, I know this is a very silly comparison to make, but the reason I mention it is because of this concept of blood wine. Remember when Fuli appeared to deliver the prophecy of finality and Noose's 3 unchangeable moments during Louis Fleming's retirement speech? Well, the other thing that Fuli brought with them was a riddle from the Enigmata, which was centered around the words blood and flower. And I think blood and flower are how Mythos intends to change the unchangeable moments. Is there really a connection between the dew of the divine blood and
Nobody remembered. Just stop, bro. Don't even pretend, bro. Bro, y'all can't even remember what was the last MOC. All right. Okay. What was Firefly's last tier list on Private? Yeah, nobody remembers, right? Nobody remembers this shit.
So
right?
glad in this context, I don't really know, but just hear me out for a second. 2 of the 3 unchangeable moments were about Rupert, and we now know that Amphoreus is a planet made out of Rupert II's attempts at recreating Noose's cosmic brain,
Bro,
and it's full of people with golden blood who are trying to thwart fate. That should be an unchangeable moment, at least within the context of Amphoreus. That should be the blood part of the riddle. And yes, I was suggesting
Oh, right.
that
We still have a couple of units that they haven't shown, right? Like the 3 shadows, like the figures that they haven't shown yet. Outside from the cast of M4. Oh, okay.
Gallagher was kind of foreshadowing this, especially because of the flower portion of the riddle. Because again, back in Penacony, Gallagher created the mimetic entity known as Death. Then later he claimed he was 13 years old, and a lot of people think that this number, 13, is a reference to the number 13 in the tarot deck, which is the Death card. In the Rider-Waite deck specifically, which is like the tarot default deck, Death carries a black banner with a white rose on it. White roses mean immortality and rebirth, and this specific rose is a reference to the War of Roses, a real battle for the crown of England in the 15th century.
Holy, what the fuck? The Battle of the Crown of England in the 15th century. Oh my god, bro, let her cook, man. Bro, let her cook. This is cooking. This is like cooking.
Peace and rebuilding after a lot of bloodshed and
Alright,
war,
let's see that.
hence the rebirth meaning, which applies to Gallagher because when the original history fictionologist self killed off
Oh,
the
that's why we
virtual
have fate, right? Because it's the Battle of Britain. The King of Britain. Arthur Pendragon and then a saber comes crashing down, saving Amphoreus. The end.
character of
Absolutely.
Gallagher, he left behind a note and this drawing that Misha made, which contains a bizarre entity here clothed in black with a mirror for a head holding a bouquet of white roses. Now, Cyrene uses tarot cards for her divination,
I
and the
don't
card for
remember that shit.
phainon should equate to the sun since he's the Dawnbringer and heralds a new day. Now, the Death
Dawnbringer.
card and the Sun card are linked via the horse on them in the Rider-Waite deck, because it is the same horse and it's supposed to symbolize the cycle of death and rebirth. Well, hello there, Death Deathly Flame Reaver and Dawnbringer phainon. I'm upset with both of you and the horse you rode in on. Now, these two work really well with the idea of death and rebirth, and thus the white roses, but they don't really have a connection to the flower themselves. But assuming Cyrene is a follower of the Enigmata, or at least is leveraging the Enigmata's power in some capacity, the way that Gallagher does, and that she is somehow related to March, then we will have a direct connection to roses once again, because March is known in Amphoreus as the Rosy Celestial Maiden. And since I made the argument earlier that March might be Mem, a mythical version of herself in Amphoreus, then March really could be the second part of Methus's riddle. She's a rose, a flower, the complement to the golden blood of phainon. And if both the conditions of golden blood and rose flower are fulfilled, then that means that this could be the means by which Noose's unchangeable moments become changeable once again. I could be totally off base though. I could have had this crash out for no reason.
It's just a theory. A game theory. Bro, she went like super far stretch, right? Bro went to the 15th century's England war with like tarot cards and like death and life. And bro, it's just a theory, right? A game theory.
But you know what? My original pre-release hypothesis of Amphoreus being connected to Rupert was one heck of a long shot when I made it, and it turned out to be right. So here's my second long shot. Let's see how this pans out.
Absolutely.
If you're still with me, then thank you so much for watching. You're finally free. You can leave now. And to all my lovely channel members that are floating by the screen right now, like tiny little butterflies of their own, you're awesome. Thank you so much for your support and your enabling of my nonsense. I appreciate every single one.
Less than 1 week, by the way. Less than 1 week, we are gonna see 3.4. Absolute cinema.
Now, I am off to theorize some more. So take care of yourselves out there, and I'll see you next time.
Insane.
Bye-bye.
All right. Yeah, word of the day is gonna be let her cook. Join Twitch, join Discord, use code boy, use code boy. See you guys in 3.4 for absolute cinema. Okay, bye-bye.